or a thumbs up.
Good evening. We just want to welcome everybody to the Labor and Workforce and Education Development. We're going to call it a discussion this evening, and we do have our Director of, give me the name, Recreation, Families, and Child Development here, and it's going to give us an overall briefing about what we're doing, how we're doing, and as far as we're doing with children with recreation, and also touch a little bit on childcare. And I'm also joined here by Councilman Deutsch, who is a member of the committee. So, Kim, you're on.
Come on, sneeze immediately. Sorry. Good evening. I have some water, but thank you. So with me this evening is Nancy Boone, Assistant Director for Youth Services, as well as Jane Krall, who's Assistant Director for Young Children and Early Learning. And they are here with me as well, so we can do a quick update. I don't know which one of you ladies like to go first. We didn't discuss that. Okay, so we'll go ahead, and Nancy's going to give an overview and kind of a quick update in terms of summer youth employment, as well as the Summer Bridge program.
No problem. All right, I have a couple of handouts. So this is just our summer youth employment program this summer. I got plenty. I can pass them around. The Summer Youth Employment and Learning Program provides paid employment and project-based learning opportunities to prioritized Hartford young people, usually between the ages of 14 and 21, or always, during the summer months. This is a long-running program. We fund Capital Workforce Partners, who contracts with 4 community-based providers to do the program work. Those
we know who they are.
Yep, they're at the bottom here, but I do want to explain the Building Hartford Through Community Action. This is the new name for Blue Hill Civic Association. And then Center for Latino Progress, Community Renewal Team, and our piece of the pie were the 4 providers that go through a procurement process with Capital Workforce Partners. So this year, they served approximately 778 youth through the Summer Youth Employment and Learning Program, and CWP leverages our dollars to contract, to perform their contracts with a mix of state and other private dollars to serve those young people in those programs. So the number of participants for the large Summer Youth Employment Program, our goal was 732. Right now, we're at 778, so exceeded.
And is there also, I'm going to interrupt this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is there also a waiting list that these individuals are going to go more than you anticipated, and then are there more that could possibly be waiting?
Oh, yes, there's a waiting list every year. Yes. And Capital Workforce Partners and our providers have a prioritization matrix that they use that includes income levels, DCF involvement, things like that. The other big program, a pilot program that we ran this summer, was called Summer Bridge, and that was in connection with Hartford Public Schools and the focus on reducing chronic absenteeism among rising 9th graders. So this summer, for the first time, 8th graders, Hartford Public School 8th graders who had a specific number of early warning indicators through Hartford Public Schools were identified to participate in our Summer Bridge program. And we were able to serve 242 rising 9th graders going into Hartford Public Schools. We did that in 3 different locations, and they were provided. The Summer Bridge program was a stipended program. They were provided a stipend of $100 a week, and there were 3 blocks to that program. So the students came in the morning, they were fed breakfast and lunch every day, they were provided transportation to the school, and then they had 2 blocks of academic programming, literacy and numeracy, and then 1 block with our community-based providers who did career development, career exploration, and some, having the kids get to know each other and get comfortable in their high school environment. Exactly. So we asked those participants about their satisfaction with that summer bridge experience. 81% reported that they were satisfied or extremely satisfied. And then we also asked them if they were more likely to attend ninth grade because of summer bridge, and we went into some details around that, but 69% of them said yes. So Hartford Public Schools will track those young people who attended summer bridge throughout the year. And I don't know, do you have anything to add or any other questions from council?
Oh, okay. One person, you could say a constituent, taxpayer, whatever, a resident, wondered what kind of training there was for future employment.
But this is you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I mean, thinking ahead, he or she thought that the work they were given was menial and without educational advancement. So how should we or I or all of you have answered that in terms of, apart from the numeracy and the literacy, was there anything else that we could say advanced their knowledge base and their skills?
So basically talking about like a workforce preparation?
Yes, there was, do you want to answer that?
So the answer is yes, but one of the things I want to acknowledge is our program here in Hartford, which is nationally recognized, is because we have a tiered system where we actually move our young people through the tiers. And the reason for that is, like, Summer Bridge is kind of like that early awareness, kind of in classroom concept, where Tier 2 is something where people are more familiar with, where Tier 2 and Tier 3, you're going to the work sites. Part of that work is they're doing college and career development training and orientation with the young people. And they actually work with the young people too to get some sense when they're doing matching. Now, the thing I'm going to be very frank with you is Summer Youth Employment Program, and not just ours, is probably one of the fastest programs in terms of the time you have for recruitment, the time you have to on-ramp young people, et cetera. Well, actually, that's when recruitment sometimes starts and we open up our application, but the actual program itself doesn't actually start until July usually. In June, you usually have a couple of weeks where we're doing some more in-depth recruitment, getting all the paperwork completed, orientation, that type of thing. But the reason I bring it up is because the community-based organizations, the providers, they are actually working to match the young people with the work site. And they're doing it very quickly, moving through hundreds of young people quickly. So I guess going back to your point, it's actually based on getting to know that young person, quickly being able to assess what tier they're supposed to be in. Because for some of our young people, if this is their first opportunity with employment, they're going to need more sometimes of a classroom base, or even be placed with a nonprofit or an organization that will give them a little more latitude and more support. But we also go all the way up through manufacturers who actually work with some of our young people, hospitals, et cetera. I don't know if you have that list or can speak to it. I don't know if that answers your question, Councilman, at all.
Did that answer your question?
Well, maybe you answered it before, because basically you say there is some academic instruction and not just, let's say, sweeping or cleaning as an aid to the community. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Our program is based on the career competencies. That was actually refreshed just this year. And these career competencies were identified by employers. And all of our programming and program design is based on improving the young people's skill as it relates to those competencies. So one of the things that we have here, and you'll note that the report actually is not due until next month. So while it's on track, we don't have all the information, but you see things like youth meeting or exceeding the expectations on the employee competency review. That's actually a document where the employers are going through several questions that are based on the career competency. So things like communications, team building, things that many of us nowadays are very familiar with. But these are things that the employers have called out and said, we need our young people to work on these things specifically, as well as they have an opportunity then to give additional information on that young person back to us.
So basically, they have, during the course of their experience, they also have like, work performance evaluations, so that way we know how well this particular young person might be doing in this particular area. Now, are there any times where, I know they offer like training to help them, but is there any time where kids might be moved from one area because they feel like, okay, this is not a good area for that particular person, so maybe we need to try them in another place?
So definitely, yes, that happens. And it's one of the reasons it's important that our youth providers are working very closely with those young people. So sometimes a young person will find out they are going to be at CVS and get really excited. And then they get to CVS and was like, this is not what I expected, right? So the CBO, the provider themselves, is working with the young person and the employer. So if something comes out where it's not a good fit, they continue to work with the young person, yeah.
That is exactly what I was looking for, because I didn't want them to say, okay, well, you failed at this, so there's not an opportunity for you to try something else. And then they like lost the program, get put out of the program because that piece was not successful. So that's good. Anything else, Councilman Deutsch? No, not now. Okay.
Oh, I think so. On this one, not on the young children yet.
The child care piece. We're gonna do the child care piece. We need a swivel on it.
Just in a sentence or two, just to ask opinions and facts before you finally leave, that's all.
Okay. All right, so we'll begin.
So we're going to do early childhood next. Our Division for Young Children is really fortunate to benefit from significant grant funds from the state. Our largest is our School Readiness Program, which gives Hartford about $11 million each year on an annual basis from the state. Office of Early Childhood started in 1997 through the State Department of Education, which was then the lead. When we started, the funds went to the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and then the legislation was sunsetted in that it would come to the city in 2002. And at that point in time, I moved over here to the city and have been overseeing that program each year. I brought a handout that really describes the state's school readiness program. Beginning with the purpose, the overall purpose of the initiative, which in essence is all about expanding access to early childhood preschool programs. So we initially, in the very beginning, there were very few programs that were in existence. And so we were begging programs, including our public schools, to start providing center-based or school-based programming.
Are we still where we are? My voice is loud. We're not even hearing right now. But are we still where pre-K is optional? Because one of the things I have concerns about, not every parent, is able or willing or by decision send their child to pre-K. They wait until it's time for them to go to kindergarten. It really bothers me because that child has been out of a group type setting and learning for like 6 years, and then you thrust them into kindergarten, and all these kids are like doing computers and colors and letters and shapes, and the child is like devastated and acting out because they can't keep up. So are we anywhere close to making pre-K mandatory?
No, it's not mandatory. However, we've done a lot of work with public awareness to heighten the importance of early childhood experiences and the quality of those experiences. So in about a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we did a needs assessment that looked at birth weights for Hartford residents or young children, and we found that there were about 74% of the preschoolers enrolled in school or center-based programs that included magnet schools and open choice schools. And so the national average for families who opt not to participate in a school or center-based programs is 20%. So when you add that to the 73, 74%, you can see we're reaching the saturation point.
They do pre-K 3 and 4.
The schools? Yes, yes. So it's not mandatory, but we have a higher number of families that are opting to do that. And as you know, there's a number of families that choose family childcare homes rather than center or school-based. Yep, yep. So the program is quite large. As I said, we get about $11 million to offset the cost, tuition costs for families. There is still a sliding fee scale, so parents still need to pay something, which is different from the magnet schools when they were first beginning or open choice. And so we saw a lot of families that really could not compete with free. And so a lot of our community-based programs really suffer from that, which is unfortunate because they've been in operation for so many years now, including our family child care providers who have a really hard time recruiting. Very often they go into business to take care of family members or relatives, and then when those exit out and enter school, they have trouble recruiting new children.
Well, I didn't, but anyway.
That's because they knew you.
The family members kept recommending the family members. Okay, I'm out, because I got so much other stuff to do, right? But anyway, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the objective of the school readiness program, there's a number that you see. The overall purpose is really, as I said, to create more opportunities, but also improve quality. Also minimize developmental delays by detecting them as early as possible or offsetting the cost of special education that occurs later when they enter school. So the mindset is we need to start as early as possible to remediate those impacts.
And then we have paras and even in pre-K.
Yes, we have paras, we have assistant teachers, we have teachers, we have administrators. That's in essence the staffing in all of the different programs.
Yeah, so like when children come in like with special needs, like 3 and 4-year-olds, we have even paras at that level.
Yes, yes, and then we certainly have the Hartford Public Schools that come in when they're preschool of age, and then birth to 3 comes in when they're lower than that.
Come here, you over here. We're all
Oh, I'm
sharing
sorry.
this mic. All right. So we got 2 mics now. Is that red light on or no? Oh, we're set it on and hold it out. We might have stretched it out. Hold on, we're coming. Technical difficulties. Good now? Oh. Okay, good. Can you just turn it up a little bit? Is it good? Is the level good for you? Okay.
So in order to be eligible for school readiness spaces, there are no income eligibility requirements, so all you need to do is be a resident of Hartford and have a child of the correct age, so preschool age. And then what happens is there's a sliding fee scale that is quite generous, and so it would be most unusual to have to pay $200. We usually have a cap in our programs. They cannot charge more than the cost of care. So the sliding fee scale, my guess is that perhaps you were looking at programs that were not school readiness or Head Start programs. Head Start is free. School readiness is the next best deal because it has a very generous sliding fee scale. The children that are most disadvantaged are infants and toddlers because there's so few slots that are subsidized by the state. Our other grant is our child daycare grant, which is for infants and toddlers, but there's not enough of them for the city.
So for those of you out there listening, we're talking about youth programs and things that are going around inside the city of Hartford for youth. And right now we're talking about early learning for birth to 3 age children. So if you're in a category where you have a young child and you wanted to go to work and you're not able to go, then you could call 211 and ask there for places. There are a lot of in-home child care where your children can go. Care for Kids, I don't know. Sometimes they're open, sometimes they're not. Check when you call 211 or ask them also about that opportunity to apply for Care for Kids, where they pay a portion of the bill and you pay the other portion of the bill. I believe that the city also accepts
Yes.
Care for Kids in our individual programs. So if you want to go to work and you need somewhere to put your child, then don't not look for all avenues to get them there. Go ahead.
So our school readiness
Go ahead,
program.
Councilman.
Oh, sorry.
One very, very simple question is, sometimes I see parents whose kids are not toilet trained, could be under 3 or over 3, they're not toilet trained. Hey, so is there a strict rule that the kid needs to be toilet trained before?
No, that would be discriminating.
So-
So all of our programs must accept children even if they're not toilet trained.
Yeah, so who does the honors then in changing them?
We all do.
Okay, because I've been told in pediatric practice that they can't enter some of these until, the kid is toilet trained, so just to clarify.
Yeah, I think that they're going to like kindergarten or something like that. They need to be, potty trained by that age. But most children are potty trained before they hit the age of 3.
I know, but some 3-year-olds, 3.5-year-olds, they haven't paid yet.
Yeah.
So 3.5 is too young for school.
Not for preschool.
But they go pre-K.
They go to preschool. But the children that have a particular hard time are those with special needs. And so they may not be toilet trained even when they go to kindergarten. So the other thing I brought is a report that we did on how we use data in our early childhood programs in the city to guide our professional development as well as demonstrating impact and effectiveness. It was done several years ago, but we collect and analyze this data on a yearly basis. But this is just to show you how important we feel it is to use data to guide our practices and improve the quality of our services. I also brought with you.
And then how will we do with children with second languages? So if English is not their primary
Right,
language.
so
how do we work with
our
that?
programs are required not to discriminate against children, even with those that we've mentioned, those that are not potty trained, but there's so many children that speak more than one language, and English not being their primary language, that we have many different programs that specifically focus on different populations, and families are very interested in seeking those programs out.
Okay. So do we refer them out or say, well,
Nope.
a child speaks the language, we try to work with them to get them
Absolutely
to
try to work
understand what
with
the
them.
English terminology is?
Yep. And we have programs that primarily serve Spanish-speaking families. Picanyen is one of those that is in the Parkville neighborhood. And so families, and Paraíso is one of Catholic Charities programs. So families are able to find where they feel comfortable and they gain trust with the program.
I'm glad you brought that up. So how are we doing with partnering with other nonprofit organizations that might, in like that case, have that particular language available or that particular skill that a child or children might need? How is it we doing with our partnerships with our nonprofits?
So every year we are required by the state to put a competitive RFP out. And so throughout the year, when we learn of programs that are opening or interested in becoming a school readiness program, we reach out to them and make sure that they're on the list to be informed when the RFP goes out. All of our existing programs go through the competitive process as well. It's an RFP that's developed by the Office of Early Childhood. We're not to change it, so we go with what they give us. And all of those programs receive the technical assistance review of the whole RFP so that they're able to submit a proposal that we look at and rate.
All right. And so when go ahead, you follow up.
Yeah, just also quickly, I also think it's important that for us at the City of Hartford, when we receive a request from a family asking about childcare, we actually make sure that we share the full list of the providers participating in the school readiness program because for various reasons, location, et cetera, we talked about where families feel comfortable. It may not be at one of our 3 centers with the City of Hartford, but
So
actually,
yeah.
so we actually have made it a practice that we always do. So when we speak to the school readiness program, we're actually speaking about all of our different providers, which is where we're 15 or 16, including ourselves. So we always make sure to do that because we may not be the best choice for a family. We have only 3 locations, and we have some great providers who are doing some really good work.
So what are we doing about, and Councilman, let me know if you have any questions, because I have like 5,000, this is what I do. What are we doing about children with trauma? Every day, every week, somebody's family member is getting killed, shot, something. And what are we doing, to help children?
So over the last 4 years, we have brought in national researchers that have expertise in trauma. Ruler is one of them out of Yale.
RULER?
RULER. It's a social emotional learning curriculum that we have been chosen to roll out in the city. They have a federal grant, huge grant, and our center-based programs are using that. We've pulled in Turnaround for Children, which is out of New York City, working with Washington, D.C., Baltimore, and a number of other big cities. It is exclusively focused on trauma, and they work with public schools as well as community-based organizations to make sure that everyone in the school, including the cafeteria worker or the janitor or whomever, are implementing trauma-informed
So
practices.
they come into Hartford to do a training?
Yeah, they
and
did.
Then we administer
Yep,
that training?
they've come in twice for that. We are also a program, First School, which I just gave you an example of. They have come in year after year, and they are all focused on making sure that our most vulnerable children that may be exposed to trauma have a place where they feel welcomed and valued and competent in their skills.
And are those places inside their learning environment? Are we sending them out, or are they coming into the job?
We are providing training through those researchers. They, in turn, are training our coaches that provide support into the programs. Because
And where the coaches are? The coaches, the teachers, or the coaches are?
the coaches, we
community?
contract with them through our consultants here, and then they coach the staff in the programs so that those programs are able to implement effective practices on a day-to-day basis. Yep. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make, because if there's a place where, I'm going to get to you, Councilman, that if the children have to go out to those services, then there could be a transportation issue and all that. So it's important that the services come in. Okay,
Right.
all right.
And we know from research that without coaching support, you can do all the training workshops in the world, but then what happens in the classroom is it's not applied in the classroom. So what we do is we do the workshops, coupled with coaching throughout the year, modeling effective practices so that changes in their teaching practices occurs in the classrooms.
And how are we reaching out to the parents?
Parents are included in family engagement is one of the key quality indicators that the state requires us to work on. Our office overseeing the school readiness program is responsible for monitoring compliance with all of these indicators. So we will go in and we will review the different family engagement activities that they have throughout the year and making sure that they're being responsive to families and not just doing those fundraisers, but making sure that families have input to policies and procedures.
Yeah, I've attended a couple of those. I'm going to get you, Councilman George, I swear in a minute. I've attended a couple of those because I have my grandkids that go over to Asylum Hill. Well, one now goes to Capital Prep, now the other one is in Asylum Hill. And I've been to a couple of those, you know, where they actually talk about, you go through a little assessment first to say, you know, if your child's been through, you know, this kind of trauma, that kind of trauma, that kind of trauma. And then I think that they base the rest of the conversation around the experience of the parents in the room, which I thought was a great idea.
Just as, when you say you contract out, basically for the trainers, is that right?
Yes,
So
and the coaches.
and the coaches, is that amount to a big task that is ongoing, or is it sort of sporadic? You contract out and they come in for a week or so and do and pass on their knowledge. So I'm asking, why don't we hire such people that can train the coaches and the trainers as department employees?
So, as part of the school readiness program, there's the quality enhancement grant that I think this year was about $112,000. So while that would cover perhaps one employee in our department, what we're able to do by splitting it up is bringing different levels of expertise from across the country and also provide one-on-one coaching support to the different programs. So what it is that I think we have a total number of classrooms, like is it 20? Yeah. Oh, my Lord. So the reason I was bringing that up is because our coaches are literally at times working with the administration and teachers in the classroom. So we have to do a spread like that in addition to bringing in depth. So by doing it with the consultants, it gives us the flexibility to be able to do that versus having one person. I will tell you, we do have ongoing conversations with the state about wanting more support for quality enhancement in particular, because if we had more, we would definitely be able to do that. But at this moment, this is just at scratching at the surface of some of the levels of expertise we brought in. And we wouldn't be able to do that with just the one, but we are having conversations consistently with the state, and they've, acknowledged the amount of expertise we've been able to bring in, and also, as Jane mentioned, have a structure behind it that allows it not just to be a workshop training one time, but to have the coaching behind it. But that's basically the main reason. It's the limited resources that we have and trying to go deep and broad at the same time.
I think I want to have a offline conversation a little later. This is taking way too long as we're trying to get children to get through trauma and they're going home and the parents have that existing trauma, then all that we did with the child in the classroom kind of goes out the window when mom is just going through it, in the household. But that's a whole another kind of conversation. We'll do that later. Councilman Good.
Well, I was going to ask then, if that's the case, can we get trainers from, instead of private outside consulting firms, let's say from the State Department of Education or Health and Human Services, in other words, state employees who can then come and coach each town or each district through public employment rather than private consulting firms?
So I'll let Jada respond too. So we do actually partner with the state on a lot of the work that we're doing. So the level of expertise that we're bringing in is extremely high and somewhat limited even across the country. But we do in particular work with Office of Early Childhood. We've also had opportunities, quite frankly, for Mrs. Kroll here to be supportive of others across the state because we are acknowledged for the additional work that we're doing beyond the minimum requirements of the actual grant. But Jane, I'll give you some.
So we work very closely, as Kim said, with the Office of Early Childhood, who is also strapped with manpower. And what they do is they do regional training through the RESCs. So they provide training workshops on a regional basis. And what we have found is whenever you go outside of Hartford, you lose a lot of people due to transportation or needing to find individuals who are interested in traveling. So as a result, over the last 10 years, we have built a citywide professional development initiative that each year builds on the previous year. So we have continuity throughout, and we are always responsible to the, or responsive rather, to the priorities and the needs of the staff in our classrooms. We have a multi-tiered approach so that we cluster peer learning groups based on common needs or levels of knowledge and competency.
You good? All right, any closing remarks for this part? We're going to get to the other discussion after.
The only thing I would say is we were really pleased to be here, looking forward to doing more of these updates. We acknowledge today we were giving these quick updates with these large overviews. Right. We plan to be here at additional meetings so that we were able to go in depth with additional information. We talked about the report that is being finalized in terms of the data we'll be receiving on summer youth employment as an example. There's key aspects. School readiness program is, we heard, very large. That we can talk about in particular to do deep dives, et cetera. So we look forward to continuing to work with all of you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Good, and we hopefully we'll have some of those individuals who did the summer youth employment come in and make presentations to us on how they did, how they felt. You know what I'm saying? Because we the adults always think, well, it was a great job, they did wonderful. And then we get the young person in front of us, and they like, wow. You know what I'm saying? They say something totally different, you see what I'm saying? So we want to, have a couple of those young people come in and speak to us, because I mean, this is their government, you know what I'm saying? This is their committee, and we have, through this committee, we have been able to get more children, into school. We have been able to save sports programs when, the administration was saying, or people were saying, we need to cut this, to cut that. The kids came and, the programs are still going on. So we want to hear from the young people that we're directly affected by our policies whenever we can. So thank you all for coming out. Councilman Dwight, do you have anything else?
Yes.
Oh.
No. Through the chair, I just want to mention a couple of things on a related subject. All of us work for the city. And so we have gotten, there are two issues which you can get back to me or us maybe next week, if you can. And actually, by that I should mean by, let's say, middle of the day Monday. If you have any thoughts on these things, we are looking for ways of boosting the salaries of some of our lowest paid city employees without raising taxes. So these are things that everyone wants to do, I think, and especially for those who happen to be in the Department of Public Works, which I have mostly become aware of.
That's not their department.
I know, no, but I'm just asking for information because we all work for the city. Some of the salaries are very low, and by the time the deductions are taken, that could result in a difficult payment for, even on a sliding scale. That's generous. So therefore, if anyone knows or goes home and thinks about it while driving or eating dinner or something, of certain departments where positions have not been filled, let's say for one reason or another, any department in the city that you happen to know well, so-and-so's position hasn't been filled for 2-3 months, then we in City Council are able to find a source of funding in order to help the salaries of those who are paid in the very bottom of the scale and who really deserve more. Most people would agree. So I was challenged properly to say, well, where are we going to get the money? Well, sometimes positions go unfilled, and some of us know about so-and-so, and it could mean a salary of half year or whatever. So that's my question, my plea. Now, the point of the other, and then a different subject, very briefly. What you have in the agenda is a subject which I thought was sort of indirect but clear enough. The mayor said he didn't understand it, so I'll have to explain to him once again directly. There have been a situation where some of our residents have had health insurance, but they've been asked for data that they think is private. And that data, they have been asked to send it to a corporation across the country in California, which they have not been informed about. They don't have confidence in. So our point was, in that case, can they share their data with someone who lives right here? It could be any of you or any of us, so that they can see face to face. They're willing to give their financial means, social security numbers, because they see a person, not some corporation they don't know anything about, and they could be hacked. See, so if anyone has thoughts on that, the point of this resolution is there has to be some openness and a contract that City Council is aware of, and sometimes the contracts are not straight to City Council members, and we, as well as the mayor and all of us, are responsible for where money goes. And if parents are not, we don't have, as they say, transparency, then sometimes they correctly suspect something and they may not participate in a program that they don't have confidence in. And some of us can help bring that confidence so it's not some distant LLC. And believe me, there's an example which it was in the footnote. Oh, it's not on here. The footnote was in the original resolution. There was a company called Sakova, which any of us who have health insurance may have been asked to share our data with, and we don't know what the heck they do. It's sort of a foreign LLC. And so we have gotten to the point where if someone is reluctant but wants to share it with someone in the city on their behalf, then they can be invited to do that with HR and so on. A person who may feel it's an invasion of their privacy. So that's all.
You had a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question. I know I'm a little bit late, but the summer youth employment, can we do a little bit better job, like trying to reach out to the younger generation, the younger
But they
youths?
do. Look, they here. Their
Yes.
goal was 732, and they reached 788, and they
Yes.
have a waiting list.
Yes,
778,
yeah,
and they have a waiting list.
yeah, that's true. But like I said, our goal is we like to be 100. But like I said, try to reach out, like posting this in the centers. A lot of people not gonna read it, but if we have like a small booth with a few employees there and said, little encouragement. You know, this is a job fair going on right here. You guys interested, like where they're having the basketball games or the soccer game? You just reach out to, and it would. I know you guys would reach that 100% mark if you did that.
That requires funding. So
Yes, that's
and
what.
we can recruit every child. You know what I'm saying? We're willing to recruit and employ each and every one that we can. However, somebody got to come up with the dollars to cut that check, because we're also giving them a stipend of $100 a week. So they can only hire as many people as they can pay, because it's not like it's a summer program or a free internship. This is an employment opportunity along with training and workforce preparation. So if somebody say they want to have like 50 kids, okay, we need the money. If they want 100 kids, we need the money. We want 500, we need to be able to put that money in those kids' pocket at the end of the week.
When I also went to the NRZ meeting, a few guys, I went Northeast. Yeah, a few person came there with like opportunity where they can help youths. But like I said, they're not here now, so they don't know. We got almost 100% to keep with employment. We're willing to go, but they don't know. So that's what I'm saying. The partnership or the communication, like trying to reach out to the NRZ and let them know we have this amount of kids that who they want to go. Yes. So
So they said they're going to actually do a better job at getting out to the community. They have like 13 different NRZs, and every single one is on a different day of the week.
yes.
So some of them on the first Monday, second Monday. So you like run yourself crazy trying to get to all of them, so maybe you guys can like split up or provide presentations so that when they go to the meetings, that it's something that they can hand out if you can't necessarily be there to make a presentation. It would help just, get the info out there.
We also partner with Hartford Public Schools in getting the word out, and in the past, we've actually had special, like basically youth kind of summit days where we did about summer youth employee. We do run into exactly what you said, and it's this thing of limited resources in the sense that we can have 3,000 young people go for these positions, and so one of the things we've also looked at are what are some of the other models that other cities across the country are using. So some of them will do, they have some subsidized programs. Our program obviously is fully subsidized in the sense that we're paying the wages of the young person, but in some cities, they'll also just do a matching program where they work with employers who actually will pay. And so what we're trying to do in partnership with our Workforce Development Board is to really get to that more, because we feel like there'll be more opportunities for our young people. So that's been a big issue. The other thing I'll mention too for the NRZ for Northeast, that's in our Promise Zone, and he mentions that Parker, it happens to be my neighborhood too. What we've done is really partnered to try to get the word out also there. And what I will acknowledge is that doesn't always mean that every single individual has the information. We're also trying to do a better job of coalescing all these different opportunities for young people, because we also talk about Youth Service Corps, which we can give an update in another meeting, where they're also working with hundreds of young people, and it's year round. And there's another program that's school-based that while we don't fund as a city, we are actually a partner and a thought partner at the table for where they are year-round at the school year, and they also cover another 100 or so young people. And what we're trying to do is do better at having a cohesive message of all these different, so it will be that, oh, you didn't come to this meeting, so you missed the information completely, or you had to be here, or you had to know so-and-so. So we're trying to do better in acknowledging that. But we do have this other issue of, if we do get everyone excited, which we want, then how do we deal with it? We're not a city like, DC, where they cover every single young person, and every 14,000 or so young people are in summer youth employment. Yeah, we would love that. But right now where we are, we never have a situation where we have spaces for young people and not enough young people, but I agree with you in terms of making sure we're getting the message out so that it's more inclusive is really important.
Okay, so is it in their department? Because you want to talk about other stuff.
It's in every department. You just give me an idea. A meeting like this, you exchange views, you come up with ideas. One way to do it is if anyone, either in your department or others, would like to take some furlough days, which I have proposed to the mayor and he has rejected consistently, but I think it's valid. Let's say someone wants to take a couple of furlough days for their own personal reasons, more than just out of vacation. Well, they could be welcome to do that, which gives their department a little more money, which then could go to another department that really needs it. So it might be a mutual benefit, you see. So this is an idea. Thank you. You kind of engender idea. Yeah.
Get out while you can. Thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you back in October, and then you can brief us again. Thank you so much for the information. All right, so the next item that we have up for discussion, Councilman Deutsch, did you still want to talk about this item?
Well, briefly follow up. You mean this one?
This one, yeah, just kind of follow it up, because we know that we're going to have to schedule a special meeting or another meeting, because this one was not scheduled. That's why it's a briefing and not necessarily a committee meeting.
Well, the chairperson can discharge it.
So you want to?
Yes, so I should just say a few sentences.
Okay.
Literally.
All right.
The situation came up, which I implied before, that here I can be frank.
Remember, we're taking.
Oh, very good. Well, good. There was a situation in the city where the Board of Education had a contract with some outside corporation to verify that someone was eligible for health care. And when someone had a hesitancy about doing that because there was some company they didn't know they were authorized, they didn't want to send their personal information, which even lawyers say they would be hesitant send their social security numbers and all that stuff to someplace across the country they didn't know. So this purpose of this resolution, which maybe we can send to the whole city council, is to make sure the contracts are right, because the contract was with the Board of Education, but not with the city. And nobody can fund, no. Yeah, no. It was just a contract to verify that someone is eligible for health care with their children. And the contract was with the Board of Education, and the city said it would sort of piggyback off it. But that's not legal. The Board of Education and the city are two separate things, technically. And so they have to have their own contracts. They didn't do that here. So when a person realized that, she didn't want to do it, and she lost health insurance for the children and has to pay out of pocket, which is wrong. So the purpose of this, which we'll have to explain to the mayor one more time, is to protect the private information. That's what it says at the bottom of one of these pages, personal information, and do so with a legitimate contract that people know is guaranteed confidential. So they don't have to worry that someone else will steal their data and credit cards, all these kind of things. So the idea of that, which we should bring before City Council, is there should be good contracts that anyone can see publicly or in the City Council, so there's no sloppiness about them. So let me just stop there. And when you read carefully, you see the point. In city, everyone wants their city to be transparent, as they say. Anyone can read the contract, and if they worry about it, it should be able to be read by them. So that was the...
All right, so there's no other discussion for the briefing this evening. We want to thank you all for tuning in to the Labor, Education, and Workforce and Youth Development briefing this evening with the Director from Recreation and Families and Children, and myself as the Chair of Labor, Education, Workforce, and Youth, and Councilman Deutsch. So we'll see you all again the first Thursday in October 2019. Thank you.
And have a good, safe weekend.